Earlier this year, I switched from using Clickup to using Samepage, and it's been one of the best moves that I did. So today I want to bring a little tutorial to you about Samepage and how it works, what I think about it, how you can use it for your business, in your team, or even if you're a solo CEO preparing to grow your team. Hey CEOs, welcome back. If you're brand new here, I'm Teresa, Operations Consultant behind LoopLink, and I'm here to help you complete the loop in your business operations and expand your agency with excellence. One of the ways I help you do that is by helping you shift from a CEO-dependent to a systems-dependent operations by leveraging your systems and processes. And that's what we're going to be doing in the Samepage tutorial. So if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe because I'm committed to helping you make the shift along with many other CEOs in our circle. So let me tell you a little bit about the reason why I made the switch from Clickup to Samepage. This is about the time when Clickup 2.0 was beginning to roll out. You see, I was an early adopter of Clickup before it even became as big as it did. I fell in love with it. It allowed me to personalize my own workflow, and I thought it was going to help me continue to grow my operations without having to worry about the tech. There was so much hype to all of these new features that were rolling out and how some of the challenges and pains that users were experiencing with apps like Asana and Trello were going to be solved with Clickup 2.0. And that's when things suddenly didn't feel as rosy and great. You see, some of the greatest things about Clickup became the reason why I chose to leave Clickup. There was simply too much flexibility. I was never satisfied. And I was so busy creating and structuring instead of fully following the workflow. And so I started spending more time managing the tech and the client work because it never felt perfect. And it felt like there could be an easier way to do this. Instead of speeding up my productivity, I was finding myself not even opening up the tool as much as I used to. And that's when I knew it was time to move on. It didn't take me long to move my operations into Samepage, and it felt like there wasn't a lot to bring in. And because how simple Samepage looked and felt, I decided to almost start over. Not only that, it was so easy to get set up. It felt like home in no time, and really it was just a week. So are you ready for it? Let's jump into it, shall we? So when we first create your Samepage space or organization, we're going to want to make sure that the setup is going to really empower your productivity and your efficiency. And I think there's a few tips and tricks that you're going to appreciate. So first things first, always make sure that you have uploaded your company logo. And how you do that is by clicking the gear icon, and then you're going to go to organization settings. This keeps it nice and fresh, and especially if you have multiple brands that you are navigating between, it's just going to be able to allow your users and your team members quickly know which brand that you are working on. So I always encourage upload your logo or at least something that represents your organization. You can create more than one organization for sure, but an organization is defined as a company or a brand. And if you have multiple brands, you can always create another organization using the same email address and toggle between them. So here I have a few brands that I do work with, and it just allows us to be able to navigate through them quickly and sufficiently. As an admin, you will have organization structure, and you can enter in content management mode, which allows you to monitor, delete, manage, and have access to across the board. So you'll need to be cautious when you are opting into the setting, and make sure you always exit it. When you are on team level, a team owner will typically be someone who has the ability to have way more functions and permissions. Usually a team owner will be the only one that has the ability to create templates and see other items on the menu that a typical member won't, even if you are an admin. So you'll have to make sure that you are a team owner in order to have these additional functions. And usually that can be defined by taking a look at the team, and if you select on team members, you're going to very easily be able to see who are the the team owners and who are members. Now, if you are an admin, you'll be able to adjust the roles and permissions. However, as the team owner, you can only set someone else up as the team owner as well. So let's talk about your profile settings for a moment. So how you get there is you just hit your little icon on the left-hand side of your sidebar and hit My Account. Now, because I take a lot of calls, I have my settings to show as a red dot under notifications, and it just shows the red dot to notify me, and I typically want to just show the dot without any noise or any alerts. This will not interrupt any conversations or meetings that I'm currently having, and it doesn't distract me from that moment. Now, if you are going to be out of the office, you'll definitely want to click on out of the office status, because when you turn this on, think of it like if you were using Outlook, you can easily show that you are not available for a chat or for any tasks to be delegated to you. And it's a great way to be able to notify your collaborators without having to send a mass email and letting them know that you are enjoying a day off or you're traveling. This also will add a little airplane icon next to your name so your collaborators and team members will know immediately. So when I'm starting my day, this is what I typically go through first in order. So first, I actually go through my inbox. It allows me to take a look at what is happening and what are some of the things that are some of the movements that's been happening across the board and across the organization. And as you can see, I've been added to a ton of groups. And usually your alerts will show up under the inbox. So this is just a really quick way to see if there are any items that needs my attention right away, such as if I was assigned a task or required to be a part of an event, it's going to show up in these areas. So then the next thing I take a look at is actually my calendar. This allows me to have a holistic snapshot on what kind of tasks or things that is moving across the board that is going to be on my plate for this week. I can view it as a day or even as a week as well. Typically, I like to view it as a month, and whatever I click on, I'm actually able to pull up that event or that task as well. So here I'm also able to see my other team members' tasks and what is on their schedule as well. At this moment, at the time of this recording, there isn't a global view yet to be able to see both your events and your all of your team members. You'll only be able to select one team member or user at a time to be able to view their tasks and events under the calendar section. Honestly, the calendar feature is something that I've been striving to use more. We've been conditioned to utilize Google Calendar as our primary source of task management, but you'll be able to begin a shift to leverage this view in Samepage or in any of your other project management tools, and it's going to allow you to segregate out what is truly necessary and not necessary. The beauty of Samepage is that you can create an event and it will still show up on your calendar, on your Google Calendar or Outlook Calendar, if you have it integrated together. Now, the next thing I take a look at before I really begin my day is actually the task view. So if I go back to home and then I click on task, it's going to show me any tasks that are due today. I can also view any tasks that are my tasks and has been assigned to me. I can also view any tasks that are created for me and any of my completed tasks as well. One beautiful thing that I really enjoy about Samepage is the ability to create specific reports. So let's say I want to view what this week's Outlook is. And so I will be able to create the name and then customize the requirements. Here, I'm going to be able to say that it's a full view and any unfinished progress, and I want to showcase anything that is just due this week. I'm also going to want to see who it's due for, and then it's going to allow me to save. Now I'm going to be able to navigate to this Outlook as it will become a standard custom report that I can view. So in the task view, you can easily create different types of reports as well that you feel that may be best suited for you in order to manage the business across the teams and projects. Usually there are 4 standard reports that I always enable for myself as the CEO of my company. This week's Outlook, next week's deliverable, and team members, tasks for workload management, and anything that truly doesn't need to be assigned to me or that can be delegated. Those are the 4 areas that I typically want to review and look at. All right, so let's take a look at structure hierarchy. Structure hierarchy can also be a science to some degree, and so I really want to take a little bit of time to explain the dynamic and structure of a team. Now, when you are in the team space, it can either be segmented by the area of your business or projects. How you can kind of like think through that is when to use the area of business. So that classifies as the executive group or the marketing group, sales group, operations, your projects team, and so forth. If you have a lot of customer-facing or client work projects, then you might want to structure it more towards a project-based format. Within the teams or projects, you can begin creating documents. For example, you can create chats. You can have chats around that project. You can have tasks, events, and files. There's a lot of things that you can bridge into that project or team itself. So let's take a quick look at one of the examples, which is a project-based team. So my philosophy surrounding the documents section of Samepage is to really explore and examine what is the need of the business. So it doesn't matter if it is project-based or if it is business area based. You should always have an objective or a project summary that is included in that. So if it's client-related work, you always need a project brief, for example. If it is the area of business, you'll always want to include common objectives for that department, as you may have collaborators specifically for that area. For example, in the marketing team, you might have contractors such as video editors, public relations managers, and event managers who needs to be able to adopt your vision in understanding what are their goals within the marketing area of your business. So let's cover a little bit about why you want to create documents inside Samepage and instead of Google Docs, for example. The answer is simple. Because then you don't have to leave the platform, particularly if it's an internal document for collaboration. You can build out timelines, events, and tasks within the documents, and it will show up in your calendar in both Google and under events. It gives you a snapshot if you need to then bring it over to Google Docs or to Google Drive. You can simply just copy it over if it's text heavy or if it's document with some tables, events, tasks, and at this time, it cannot be copied over to a Google Doc, but instead you can print it as a PDF and store it in a Google file. Alternately, if someone needs a copy of it, you can always move it to a team and invite the individual as a guest to the same page and have them collaborate on the document together with you. So here, if you click on the 3 dots, you'll be able to download all the files. You can also print it, and there's going to be some capabilities for integrations as well. You may be wondering when to create documents. Now imagine if you need to create a document to discuss for discussions, notes, meeting minutes, planning, or just to capture a scenario. Create a document. This will keep anything related to the initiative, project, or scope or activity together. So for example, if you have standing meetings, you can actually go to your team meetings and you can quickly pull up the last meeting minutes, and you should be able to see when it took place, what was the agenda, what was some of the action, what was some of the discussions and action takeaways. So how you create a document, all you have to simply do is click on the new button, and it gives you a short menu, and you can choose from a template, which allows you to have to select a few featured native Samepage templates, as you can see here. And also as well, you can select any templates that you have created for your own organization. So if you see that there's an existing template that you'd like to use, you can simply select it and then modify it. There's a variety of templates that you can select and source from. Now, one of the newest changes and updates that just rolled out literally just this week is the Kanban task board. This allows you to be able to create horizontal columns similar to a Scrum board that you can now create and add into your documents. And it is very quick. to create. And then you'll be able to add in your tasks. You'll be able to make it as, at this point in time, you're not able to create it as a template, but in the future, they will likely roll out that feature. So when you have a specific task-oriented mission, like a marketing campaign that needs to be focused on, a Kanban board might be really great to capture the visual. And if your mind works a little bit better with a list, then a page may be more ideal. Really, it comes down to your preference. All right, so before we go any further, I really want to touch on an important note, which is naming conventions. So as you progress, before you build out all of your business operations, start with your business policies and what that really entails. So what I typically like to do is always lead with best practices and also as well naming conventions. So what does that truly mean? It means that we create a naming format or the ways how we're going to be filing in a standardized way. So you always want to lead with a specific keyword at the beginning so that the users can identify the purpose of the document immediately. If you have recurring tasks or activities that you're going to have multiple documents over and over again, that's when you may want to adopt a date format as well. And so usually for date formats, I always encourage year, month, day. This just keeps it organized, especially if you are branching over a series of years. So any important documents that must be read first should always lead with a period. It will push it all the way to the very top. So for example, if I have objectives and key results, that's always going to be the first document that gets shown. If I am in my YouTube workflow, for example, or a project, it's always going to show the template to begin with. So when you follow a naming convention, this will always improve your search indexing. All right, so I wanted to walk you through a little bit of some of the hidden gems in the documents section. So when you create a page, you're going to be able to use a few functions. One of the beauties about the pages is that you can actually have many different things that comes into play. So here I can show that I can have a mission, vision, and values, and I can also add in a text box. I can mention other pages and people as well. So if I wanted to mention another colleague, I can add them there, and then I can also direct them to where I want them to review, which could also be a page, for example. So let's say I want them to review the marketing plan. I can tag them, and as you can see here, once that gets tagged, it will just jump them to that page. There we go. And if you hover over it, it's also going to identify which page and where that document is living. So this is how easy it is to make a template. All you have to do is click on the three dots and click on Make a Template. Now when I go back to Pages and I click on New, I can choose from Template, and there it is. This is where it shows up. And I can easily create it at that point in time. Now, one of the other hidden gems that I always encourage you to use is the Review Later button. So this is a little trade tip secret. If you are having a work in progress document at this time, and let's say it's running really late, or you have to pause because you have another meeting that you have to jump into, instead of losing its spot and trying to find out where you were, just simply click on Review Later. What happens is this triggers a new menu to pop up, and now you're going to be able to pull up that document very quickly and very easy. And once you're done review, just simply uncheck it and it will be complete. Now, the other component that allows you to easily index your documents and your pages and your work as well is hashtagging. So I always like to use a rule of thumb, especially when you start having a lot of documents. It can be quite difficult to see where you are currently at in the workflow. So for example, if I'm in my project summary and let's say it's done, all I need to do is just add in a tag of hashtag done, and now when I look on it, I can actually see that the hashtag appears right beside the page title. Now I always use as well any work in progress. So if it's something that I am currently working on, this just allows all collaborators and team members of that project to be able to see easily at a snapshot where we currently are in that state. Now, one of the other great features about Samepage is real-time updates together and changes. I was showing a client the other day that as I am navigating or working alongside them on this document, we're just updating the titles and updating the goals, for example, you can see that actually taking place on the screen. Now, if you're worried that there could be some overlap or some changes that are overridden, have no fear, because there is a little other tidbit, which is history. And if you know that you're working alongside someone else on the same document at the same time, you can also turn on track changes. This just allows you to be able to see who's added what, when, and where. All right, so now let us go to task management. At the time of this video, task management in Samepage does not have a start date, but only an end date. A part of this reason is to keep it simple and allows for prioritization. I find that when I have a start date and an end date, and if something gets adjusted, because, you know, as fires happen throughout the day, I have to bob and weave and navigate that day accordingly. Knowing that I only have one date, which is the end date, to update, releases any other anxieties that mounts up because I missed a start date. Remember that task management is a state of mind as well. Leverage the progress update icons, such as the 25%, 50%, or 75% markers. You can also color code the tasks based upon the status or phase. I typically work in phase colors, so usually if something is captured, I'll put it in yellow. If it's in progress, I'm going to put it in orange. So let's talk about best practices for a moment. The question to ask is when to create a task on a document versus a high-level task. So a high-level task is really defined by when you are creating a task solely right underneath the task menu. Under documents, if you're creating a task within the document, it would be a document task. How to kind of decipher that and make that decision is that if the task is related to the objective as a whole and not to a scope, activity, or project, then keep it under the high-level task. If it's going to touch on the overall plan or project, then keep it in a document, because this just allows for easy audit trails and tracking. An example of this could be when you are checking Pinterest optimization every day. So the next thing we will definitely want to consider is recurring tasks. When you set up a task and you're setting it to a recurring task, no matter if it is in a high-level task section or on a document, it will be generated in that originated space. The other thing to recognize is that there can only be one assignee at a time. If the task needs to be crossed over for review, then you would assign it to the next person and make sure that you add a step underneath in the details by selecting the little squares and then tagging the person. And then now you have forwarded it to the next person and have them take care of the task for you. However, what you can do is add yourself on as a participant. The difference is that you can have one assignee and many participants, but make sure that you are cautious on using participants, as it would show up on their task list when they don't necessarily need to be involved. You can always take them once you're done. All right, so let's talk about past due tasks. The key component is to always update it, even if it's past due. This notifies the team that although the original due date was missed and it's rescheduled for completion. Don't let a task live in an overdue state. This bypasses any urgencies and conditions you to ignore the red dot on your screen. All right, so let's talk about business processes. I've been recently designing my SOPs, which is standard operating procedures in Samepage. This allows my team and I to quickly find our standard processes to follow and execute on fluently. This also allows us to quickly search for it through the search functions and be able to pull it up and be able to run with it quickly. We can also build out our standard checklists in this document or have it stored as a template so that we can easily create a template from it. Example will be like my YouTube workflow. I have it templated so that I can focus on scripting and then have my workflow underneath it so that once I'm ready to assign it, it's all living within the same document. And finally, the last component that I want to be able to touch on is actually feedback. So feedback is very important, especially when you are migrating your team to a new tool or app. This allows users to leave their feedback of what's working, what's not working, and how we can continue to improve together to close the gaps. And anyone in the organization, whether it's a collaborator or even a team member, will be allowed to add in their feedback. And I'm always of the mindset of continuous improvements. And this can also give me insight into training as well. So if a user is struggling on how to leverage a workflow or checklist, or know when to create a task in a document or create a high-level task, that's where we can actually work on it together so that they get really comfortable with using this tool. Hopefully this has been super helpful in jumpstarting your journey within Samepage. I hope you've fallen more in love with it just as I am. If you are, make sure to check out the links below. You can start a trial yourself. The pro trial runs for 30 days, so it'll give you ample time to test the features to make sure it works for you. Let me know in the comments below if you're loving it, if you've tried it, and if you have any questions about it, or if you're switching to it, because I just want to hear about all things Samepage. So I can't wait to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, bye for now.